Things First is sponsored by Gillette, the best a man can get.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to First Things First. It is Friday. I'm Jenna Wolf. That's the Hall of Famer, Chris Carter. This gentleman is Nick Wright. We are gearing up for a big weekend and then a nice holiday next week. We will be here. We're very excited about it, but a big show today. Dak Prescott is ready to dominate the Bucs. Pro Bowler Adam Thielen will be joining us live. But we'll start the program
My guy Nick Wright ready to go to the club with the velvet on.
He's got the velvet side.
Okay.
One player.
I'm on the streets in Harlem tonight. Red Rooster might see him.
We start with one player questioning another man's resume. Blasphemous is what I like to say. Let's set the table for that. Steelers will be in New Orleans on Sunday to face the team with the best record in the NFL in the New Orleans Saints. It shouldn't come as a surprise that the Steelers offense will have their hands full with a Saints defense that has been on fire lately, best in the NFL the last 6 weeks. And while Big Ben is generally regarded as one of the top quarterbacks of his generation, one Saints player is singing a different tune. Take a listen.
This offense do well. We know they run it well. We know they got a couple of 1,000-yard receivers. They've got a quarterback who might be going to the Hall of Fame. He's only been sacked 20 times.
Is that true?
Roethlisberger? Yeah. So,
really?
What did this offense do well?
In this era? You put him at like a top 3 of this era.
I wouldn't put him at a top 3, but I think
top 5 of this era.
He's going to go to the Hall of Fame.
Top 5 of this era.
Roethlisberger, top 5 of this era.
You put him at top 5 of this era.
A couple of Super Bowls. Probably gonna
Is that a yes or no?
Yes.
You put, so you have, who do be your top 5? Drew. Tom. Aaron.
Aaron, who got less Super Bowls than Roethlisberger. Let's keep going.
Numbers are impressive. So you're saying
You're saying numbers are impressive?
Whose numbers are always impressive.
Okay.
Aaron. Okay, so then you put him right there.
Roethlisberger doesn't have decent numbers.
Peyton
who?
Manning. He's not.
Well, I didn't even count him in the era.
This is the era. He retired 2 years ago.
Him in the era.
That was most of Roethlisberger's career. You're saying he's better. He's better than Phillip Rivers right now.
Right now,
career-wise. Because you give him the Super Bowl nod. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, he didn't have a more accomplished career than Phillip Rivers.
You're putting him at number 5.
Yeah, I put him at 5.
Okay. I mean, okay. I'd honestly put Eli before I put Ben, but okay.
What?
2 Super Bowls. If we're going by his numbers. Exactly.
Except Eli washed.
I hear you. All right, cool. So you're putting him at number 5.
It is so rare that you see that kind of engagement with a player who just wants to have a conversation
Cam
with
Jordan
you.
makes a list. He been watching.
Cam took a break from playing to jump on Nick's corner, made himself a little list, and a bunch of people were all about it. Nick, what do you make of Cam Jordan's comments about Big Ben?
So I think that he's right in that Big Ben, obviously, if we're going to do this kind of his era ranking, he's not in the top 3. He's right there. I think for most people would have him at 5. Those names ahead of him: Brady, Peyton, Rodgers, Breeze, in some order or another. And then I think the vast majority of people would have Big Ben right there at 5 with Phillip Rivers and Eli. People would argue about those two. One has had a much more decorated regular season career. The other's had a much more decorated playoff career because Phillip Rivers been to the AFC Championship game and no further. But I do find it fun when a player, the question wasn't, is Big Ben top 5? If you were listening, he was like, you guys are going up against a team that's got great wide receivers, good running game, a Hall of Fame quarterback. And that's where he jumped on it. He was like, oh, is he a Hall of Fame quarterback? Who said he was a Hall of Fame quarterback? So Cam Jordan knows as much football as anybody playing. Like, he's allowed to have an opinion on it, just like I'm allowed to have an opinion on it. I enjoyed the interaction. I think he is slightly underrating how good Big Ben's been and how long he's been that good. But I loved seeing that from Cam Jordan and seeing him engage like that.
Of course. Cam Jordan. He's a bright guy. I know your dad played with your dad.
Yeah.
All right? Stay out the listing business. Number 1, the players playing the game today, they don't know that much about the league and the other players. All right? I prove it to Nick all the time. So when players start evaluating, they're not watching enough film on these quarterbacks to be able to give an accurate depiction. Also, I'm in the Hall of Fame. Stay out of predicting who's in the Hall of Fame. Ben is going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Wait, is or isn't?
Is. It's automatic. It's automatic. Like, Eli is the questionable one, but I can understand Cam. He plays for the Saints. One of the greatest players ever was who? Archie Manning. All right, who is he? The father of Eli and Peyton Manning. Eli spends a lot of time in New Orleans in the off season. So it's a little slanted towards his dad and the son. And I know after being in NFL locker rooms and also seeing guys transfer from playing to doing television and commentating, they don't know that much, all right? I ain't trying to call him out, but there's guys year after year, they start to figure out, wow, I didn't know that much. I know my division, I know a little bit of my conference, but league-wide, you have to be very, very careful in making lists like this, Cam Jordan. Keep playing the defense, as you mentioned, that's the number one thing, that list. Number one in the NFL the last 6 weeks. Make a list of quarterbacks you're going to sack all the way to the Super Bowl. That would be the list I prefer to have the players on compared to this one.
So I understand where your threshold is. The point I'm making is it would be the height of hypocritical if I said I have the right to give my rankings of things. I have the right to say who I think is a Hall of Famer, but Cam Jordan doesn't. Even if, to C's point, it's possible I've watched more Big Ben over the last 8 years than Cam Jordan.
I can guarantee you have. It's impossible for him to watch a quarterback that he's only played against once and he's in a different conference. They're not watching those guys. So these guys that make comments about other guys in the league, they don't know that much about the rest of the league. I tell people that all the time. Be very careful. Just because a guy played doesn't mean that he knows. Now, he was very smart. He's a smart guy. His list and everything he represented, cross point. I like that. He explained himself. No, he's a smart guy. Yeah, he's got a future in television. But if he wants a long future, listen to me. Don't listen to that guy. Stay out of the listing business.
All right, let's turn our attention to the game. How will the Steelers, if they're going to pull off this upset over the Saints, how are they going to do it?
So Chris and I were talking this morning, and Chris said something kind of just offhandedly. He's like, well, everybody knows at this point how good the Saints defense has been the last month and a half. And well, Cam Jordan might know, but I don't think the average fan yet I think there's people watching right now that will be shocked to hear this. Over the last 6 weeks, the Saints have the number one defense in football. Over the last 6 weeks, the Saints
Number one.
They've allowed the fewest points. They have forced the most turnovers. In that same time frame, their offense over the last 5 weeks, their offense is bottom 5 in football. So are they going to follow that path, or are they going to get back to what they were the first 10 weeks of the year, which is a team that was powered by their offense against a Steelers team where I would say their weakness overall is their defense compared to a high-powered offense in Pittsburgh?
The offensive line hadn't played up to. Teron Armstead, they've missed him since week number 10. He injured, partially tore his pec. He's been practicing the last couple of weeks. We don't know when he's going to come back. When he comes back, though, you're talking about a guy playing left tackle who Pro Football Focus says is the best offensive lineman in the NFL, but he's got a torn pec. And there's a reason why he's not playing. So he'll be limited. The rest of the offensive line, they suffer some injuries internally, so they haven't played the type of football. Pittsburgh's going to put some pressure on them. All right, this offense has not been able to generate enough big plays. They don't have a counterpunch to Michael Thomas. Alvin Kamara, and Mark Ingram, look at the lack of 20-yard runs that they've had this year. If people don't know that the Saints are led by their defense, they should also know that this running game is not the running game that they had last year, where both of their running backs were voted into the Pro Bowl. So these are different teams, all right? Pittsburgh, with the win last week over New England, coming in with a tremendous amount of momentum and the pressure of trying to get into the playoffs with Baltimore right on their heels. This should be a great football game.
We've talked a lot about how amazing Drew Brees' career has been. You talked about his throwing motion, how he doesn't let the height work against him, how unlikely his story is. But we were talking off the air about the one spot where, no doubt, the fact that Drew Brees, first ballot Hall of Famer, setting all these records, where the height still can really pose a problem, and it's when the protection breaks down. Like that, because of his height, that is an issue for him even more so than all quarterbacks struggle under pressure, but more so for the shorter guys. Explain why that is the case.
Well, for one, a quarterback, especially like Drew Brees, he has great anticipation. So he's used to knowing a guy might get into a certain window. So he's used to throwing into blind spots. But there's no quarterback that's used to being blind. And when you get internal pressure for a guy who is challenged height-wise, 6'1", maybe-ish, if he got some Air Jordans on with some insoles in them. So when you get in his face If he can't look down the field and look into those windows to throw, where he has that great anticipation, that's where he begins to get a problem. If you take away Drew Brees' first look, then he begins to have a problem. That's where his height, because internally, the centers and the guards aren't as tall as the tackles. So typically, Drew Brees is looking down the throat of the defense. If he gets internal pressure, his vision is taken to the outside, and you got bigger guys. So it's harder to anticipate because he has to throw over or around bigger guys. So that's the way you can affect Drew Brees, affect him with coverage, but internal pressure always. Him, Russell Wilson, Baker Mayfield, any guy that is beyond 6, that is not taller than 6'3", they will struggle with that internal pressure.
And that's where it makes sense with Big Ben. So many of his signature plays have been under pressure, not only because he's strong enough to not be pulled down, but he can still see over everybody. And so I thought it was just an interesting note we had talked about off the air that in this game, because both of these teams have excellent pass rushes, both of these teams on the year have been very good about keeping their quarterback upright. Whichever pass rush has more success in this game could be the biggest key on Sunday.
And coming up, we'll compare offenses to see who's going to put up more this weekend. Coming up on the other side, though, the Cowboys try to get back on track. They're facing the Bucs. That's next on First Things First.